Hi, welcome to Victoria Knits. I'm Victoria. And yes, this probably looks like a gardening show today. I am out in our cold frame. And yes, it is a cold frame. It's not a greenhouse. And technically the difference is a greenhouse, you can adjust the temperature like with the flip of a switch or the turn of a dial. A cold frame, we adjust the temperature by opening and closing the doors and the sides. My husband Kim designed and built this cold frame on his own. I helped him bring it out here to our garden spot piece by piece after he put it together and then took it apart. And since this is our first year of vegetable gardening here in Montana since we moved, it's all been a huge experiment. I did just kind of want to show you Kim's cold frame because I wanted to show you what he does when I'm knitting all day long. He loves to grow vegetables. He has been growing tomatoes and peppers, cucumbers, gourds, pumpkins, strawberries, lettuce, among other things. We've learned a lot this year. We knew that a cold frame was going to be essential to growing here in Montana. We didn't realize quite how essential it was going to be until since July 1st, it has frozen here 3 times. And yes, we have lost tender plants to those frosts that were not inside this cold frame. But the cold frame does protect the tender plants. We're going to have lots of tomatoes, as you can tell. You know, not enough. We want more because we probably won't have enough to do a lot of canning this year. But we'll make adjustments next year. So yeah, Kim loves doing this. It's great to have a hobby after you retire. So I'm really glad he has this. I just want to remind everyone that you can find me on Ravelry as VictoriaJean and on Instagram as VictoriaJeanW. And thanks to Andrea at the CATT Lady podcast. She just started a new thing called Linktree, where you can, in your Instagram profile, you can link to all your little social media outlets, YouTube or your Facebook page or whatever. So I think that's really handy. So you just don't have to put one link in there. Linktree allows you to do other links. So I thought that was really handy. Also, since the last podcast, I had a question about Kim's name, and it is Kim. It's K-I-M. Kim is actually his middle name. He chose to go by his middle name rather than his first name. His mother, at least, called him Kim, gave him the middle name Kim, after Rudyard Kipling's book by the same name, Kim, which is an interesting read. So, I know everybody's really interested in who won the giveaway, and the winner of the Ravelry giveaway is...
You say Wendy?
Did you get that? I'm sure you did. Russell is here to help us announce our winners. Let's try that one more time, Russell. Yes, it's Wendy from BaaBaaYaYa, and she is winning this skein of yarn. So Wendy, when you have a chance, please message me either on Ravelry or private message me on Instagram so I can get your address and get this in the mail to you. And congratulations. And we also have our YouTube winner. Russell, will you announce the YouTube winner, please? Did everyone get that? Let's try that one more time, Russell. Yes, the YouTube winner is Asteride. I think that's how you pronounce your name. And you win this skein of yarn from Polka Dot Yarns here in Montana, Polka Dot Sheep. And if you, Asteride, if you will send me a private message on Instagram or Ravelry with your address. I'll get that yarn out in the mail to you. Congratulations, everyone. And Russell says, yay, yay, yay.
Yay, yay. Yay, yay.
And to take a little bit of the sting out of not winning, guess what? We have another giveaway. This is thanks to Linda and Ron at Lavender Mountain Yarns. Linda and Ron sent me 2 skeins of yarn, one to keep and one to give away. The one I kept is called Tequila Sunrise. I made this gorgeous cowl out of it. It's called the Whimsy cowl pattern. Isn't that lovely? Those colors are great. And really, it's cowl time, right? I mean, let's say, I'll say it together now. Winter is coming, right? Linda sent this skein of yarn along also to give away to a viewer. It is called It Ain't Easy Being Green. I did not recognize what that name referred to or who that name referred to. You may have, and if you do, please leave a comment to enter the giveaway. Just tell me who your favorite Sesame Street character is, and you'll be entered in this giveaway. Also, to sweeten the deal a little bit, I am going to add along with that, with the skein of yarn, I'm going to give away a $5 pattern of your choice on Ravelry. So you can enter. We'll just open this up to both YouTube, and I'll have a thread in my Ravelry group, which is Victoria Knits, and you can enter there also. So you'll get that skein of yarn. It is, let's tell you what that yarn is. It's 100% superwash merino DK. It's 100 grams. I highly recommend you check out Linda and Ron's website. It is lavendermountainyarns.com. They have lovely yarn, and it's priced very well. So go check her out and see what she's got for you. They are in North Carolina, by the way. Also, before we go too long on here, I'd like to give some shout outs. Gosh, I watch a lot of knitting podcasts. Whenever I'm ready to give my shout outs, I realize, good grief, do I really watch that many? But I do, and I like them. I don't watch, to be truthful, I don't watch most of the big ones, you know, the really famous ones that we all know about. I like to kind of watch people that are a little bit, a little closer to my scale, kind of, you know, small, independent, just getting going people. But anyway, I'd like to give a shout out to Andrea, the CATT Lady. That stands for Craft All the Things, CATT, C-A-T-T. She's getting her podcast up and going again. She was kind of taking a break for a while. And then, gosh, there's so many women that I like to watch. There's these gals, I think it would be really nice to have a partner to podcast with, and these gals do. Lambstrings Yarn is one I watch. That's Shanna and Jamie. They are not sisters, I believe, but they could be, because they kind of act it. I mean, you can see they're very fond of each other. Also, Mean Girl Knits. I like to watch them. Mean Girls Knit. They're not mean. But if you want justification for not weaving in your ends, you need to watch Mean Girls Knit. That's Stephanie and Rebecca. And then I also like to watch Three Sisters Knit. That's Sheila and Margaret. And they're in Canada. And, you know, they hold knit-alongs, and they're always knitting some nice stuff. So those are some podcasts I definitely recommend. I'm in a good mood today because just this few days ago we got back from visiting my daughter and son-in-law and my grandson Russell again. We went on 2 hikes while we were there, and this time Kim got to go with us, which was really nice. The first hike I will show later in this episode, and it was the easier hike. For some reason, we ended up taking Russell on the difficult hike. My daughter is she's a strong woman that will cart that kid around on really tough, very steep terrain hike. And but it was a lot of fun. We found some huckleberries on the way down, and we all enjoyed that. Russell had his first huckleberry and he loved it, and he kept asking for more, and then he fell asleep with a little huckleberry smear on his cheek, which of course, as a grandmother, I thought was super adorable. And in episode 10, back in episode 10 of this podcast, I talked about Kim and I planning on hiking to Grinnell Glacier this summer. Well, we did manage to knock that off our list. We put a check mark beside that hike. It was a hike that did involve some consequences for me. And but I think after you view the video, you'll probably agree that it was definitely worth the consequences. Hi, we made it. We are at Grinnell Glacier. I am exhausted. And I probably look it too. We just hiked 5.5 miles up here. It was mostly about half uphill, probably more uphill. Grinnell Glacier is very pretty. It was named after George Bird Grinnell. He died in 1938 and he was born in New York City. He was a strong advocate of this creation of Glacier National Park. He studied Native Americans and he was very concerned about the bison disappearing. Grinnell Glacier is, we are at around 7,000 foot elevation. In 1850, this glacier measured 710 acres. In 1993, it was down to 220 acres. In 1850, there were 150 glaciers in Glacier National Park. In 2010, that was down to 25. And gosh, we're going to talk some knitting. I am really exhausted. It was quite the hike up. Luckily, the way down will be mostly downhill. I finished, well, you didn't even see me start them, but I did these Fair Isle gloves. The pattern is from Alice Starmore in her book, the Fair Isle Book of Knitting. They have, they call for 8 colors of yarn. I did all 8. I dyed a couple of them myself. They turned out really well. I was in this pattern. I could not keep the holes from happening in between the fingers. In the Fruit Loop gloves I used to make, I always managed to keep holes from happening. But in these, because of the pattern, it didn't work. But it didn't end up being too bad. I managed to sew up all the holes in between. There were a heck of a lot of ends to weave in. A lot of ends to weave in. I am calling these my Glacier gloves since I completed them just before we came up. I'm so thrilled with them. Since they are Fair Isle, they have double the yarn, of course, everywhere. They're stranded, so they will be super warm this winter, and I think they're gorgeous. They are bright, bright gloves. They're complicated gloves, and they remind me of Glacier in that sense also. Glacier can be very complicated, and you really have to get into it in order to see the good stuff. But it's been a good hike. I'm going to show some pictures of the way down, and the lakes have been beautiful. There's been a lot of people along the trail with us, but we did get to see some wildlife. So I've really, it's been good. It'll be nice to get back to the hotel though. So we're going to skip all the hike back. This is the front of Mini Glacier Hotel where we spent a night. This is actually the back of the hotel. It overlooks Swiftcurrent Lake. Very beautiful spot, one of the most popular, I think, in the park. There aren't that many hotels to actually stay in inside Glacier National Park. I'm sitting outside our hotel room watching the sunrise in my spindrift shawl. And this is the gorgeous sunrise we were treated to in the morning. Just beautiful. Hi. So we are outside of Glacier National Park now. An evening at the hotel and a good night's sleep. We're feeling much better. So right now we are at Hungry Horse Reservoir. The Hungry Horse Dam is here and the reservoir is right behind me. The reservoir is about 29 miles long. It's a huge reservoir. This is the first time Kim and I have actually been up here, although it's not that far from where we live. Anyway, Hungry Horse Reservoir got its name from, in the winter of 1900, there was a line of freight horses and two of them got loose and were found a month later very hungry and very thin, and somebody decided that that would be a good name for this whole area and the town. I don't get it either, but maybe it was just a huge deal that they found these two horses. Maybe they were super valuable in the 1900s. So let's talk knitting. I have been working on this Exordium shawl. It's a paid pattern on Ravelry. I am loving how it's turning out. I especially love this little stitch right here that she has on it. It's so pretty. I'm not quite finished with it. I am making it a little bit larger than the pattern actually calls for because I love the yarn I'm using. And yes, it's mostly pink, which is one of my favorite colors, obviously. This yarn is from Hannah Made It. It is called Octopus. And the pink yarn I'm using I got as a gift from Cappy at the Yarn and I. She said she bought this in a bargain bin at one of the festivals and she over-dyed it. And I love it. I love both yarns and I think that they're making a beautiful shawl. I think this might end up being one of my favorites. So I'm pretty excited about it. Hi, we're out hiking again. And right now we are at Lake Muskegon, and I would ask you to guess what state we're in, but I don't think you would get it. We are in Washington State by just 400 yards. We are 400 yards from the Idaho border. This lake is at elevation of about 3,500 feet. It's very pretty. It's also known as Muskegon Lake. And we just came from Granite Falls and from looking at some beautiful old cedars in what's called the Roosevelt Grove. So I will show pictures of that later. Very pretty. It's been a beautiful, beautiful hike. It's been short. Trust me, it's been a short hike. So let's talk knitting. You remember the yarn I showed that I dyed last time? Well, I finished one of my socks. This is yarn I have dyed all of this yarn myself. I'm really loving the way it's turning out. I've got the second one going, and I am entering them in a cowl. I'm entering them in the Dialong cowl that Meanwhile at the Castle podcast is putting on, Emily and Deborah. I'm also knitting these for another cowl I'm in for the Pen Pal cowl. That's part of the Lucky Jenny Knits and Pause for Stitches. Candy at Pause for Stitches are doing the Pen Pal cowl. So I'm going to enter this in both of these. These will be for me. This pattern is, the name of it is Solar, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'm really liking it. Also, you will notice that I now have real live sock blockers. Not the homemade out of cardboard kind, but real sock blockers. Thanks to Cappy at the Yarn and I. She sent me sock blockers in the last exchange we did for me knitting that shawl for her. And so they're working great, and I really appreciate that, Cappy. So after I show you the hiking we did up here and how beautiful it is, I am going to end this podcast with little short videos like I usually do. I'm going to call it Off the Porch or something like that, because they're pictures that I've taken off our back porch, just things around the house. So goodbye from Washington State this time. We also hiked to what is known as the Roosevelt Grove of Ancient Cedars. Around 1919, foresters who were cutting down trees recognized the value of this stand of old growth cedars and appealed for its protection. Most of the trees are around 800 years old, and a few of them are probably more than 2,000 years old. Surprisingly, they are not an actual cedar tree, but they are an evergreen coniferous tree in the cypress family. These trees were used extensively by Native Americans. They used them for constructing houses, totem poles. They made many objects out of them, including masks, utensils, boxes, boards, instruments, canoes, vessels, houses, and ceremonial objects. The roots and bark were used for baskets, bowls, ropes, clothing, blankets, and rings. Since this was an adult-only hike, our daughter Vanessa took advantage of that and did some meditating while we were there. These trees do not have a large range. Mostly they are in western Oregon, Washington, up through western Canada, and surprisingly enough, northern Idaho and up northward into Canada from there, including just a couple of small spots in western Montana. This is a small stream we crossed on our way to Lake Muskegon. And Kim is playing with our knockoff GoPro. These are northern flickers or large woodpeckers, often found on the ground where they like to eat insects. I didn't realize it, but back east, these flickers have yellow color under their wings, and here in the west, they have red. I watched this bluebird drop to the ground, spread its wings. I thought it was dead. But a few minutes later, it jumped up onto a perch. I assume that meant it was just sunning itself. Very curious behavior.